So, this is chapter 2 in the secret lore of the Lakota Shamans. And I thought I would talk a little bit more about the 4 parts of the soul: the Nia, the Nari, the Nahila, and the Shichun. These all are given to us when we're born by Taku Shkanshkan, the Great Spirit. When the Nia comes to Earth, it comes from Awania, from the stars. All 4 actually. They all come from Taku Shkanshkan, who reaches up and he grabs a star. And that's one part of your spirit or soul. The Nia is important for the purposes of the job of the shamans. The shamans are supposed to cure people, or at least heal them. There is a difference between healing and curing. Healing is not quite so final as a cure. You can heal without curing. So most of us aspire to healing. We call ourselves healers and not curers. Important thing to remember. If the shaman is called to the bedside of someone who is passed out and comatose, that person could be missing a part of their soul. And what part of the soul might that be? If they were missing the Nia, which is the breath of life, the animating element, if they were missing that, they would just be flat out on their backs and close to death, probably. That'd be a sign that, gee, maybe we ought to find that Nia. If you're missing the Nagi, that would be somebody who's in a coma, but they're healthy. Because they still have their Nia, right? But they don't have the ghost part of themselves. So these are tricky things that the Lakota shaman would have to figure out before he goes looking for these spirits. The Sichun is not, it could be missing, I suppose, but it's more importantly used for the healing. How would a Lakota shaman approach healing someone who's comatose? Depending on the symptoms that he's perceiving, right? He's going to decide that, well, it's either the Nia or the Nagi that's missing. So how would he do that? Well, he's going to have to go journeying. He's going to have to go looking in the spirit realms for that missing spirit. And he's going to have to track that thing down, and he's going to have to bring it back somehow. He's going to have to cajole it. He's going to have to convince it, capture it, whatever his own personal medicine is that he's been given to do these kinds of healings. And so you can see it's a rather interesting way of approaching the healing process. Now, I talked, in the previous talk, the part 1, chapter 1, about the Shichun. Let's pronounce that correctly. Shichun. Shichun. The N on the end is guttural. The S's are pronounced sh, and the C's are pronounced sh. So it's Shichun. Shichun. So the Lakota shamans receive Shichun in addition to their own personal Shichun. We're talking about additional Shichun. A Lakota shaman is a specialist in Sichuans. He collects Sichun. He's a Sichun collector. And so, for example, when he's on his Hambleisha, on his vision quest, when the spirit comes to him and contacts him after 4 days of being up there naked on this hill without any food or water, all of a sudden the spirit approaches him, and it comes in the guise of an animal, usually some different animal. Whatever animal shows up, that's the medicine that he's being given by that spirit. That medicine that he's been given is Sichun. So he now has his own personal Sichun that was given to him at birth, but now he has an additional one given to him by spirit when he did his vision quest. This additional Sichun has to be usually confirmed by an elder shaman who will interpret what happened, but then they will go through a ceremony where the Sichun that they were given is brought to life, consecrated, so to speak, and when that happens, the Sichun that he's received goes into a medicine bundle. The medicine bundle is called a wash Sichun, and as he continues to go through his life, a good Lakota shaman will do a Hambleisha every year. So on each Hambleisha, presumably, he's going to get some more Sichun. So he's continuing to build up. He's collecting Sichun, and it's going back into his bundle, or he has multiple bundles even. He might have a bear bundle, he might have a buffalo bundle, he might have an eagle bundle. It's not recommended, I don't think, that you mix those things into one bundle. But he's collecting Sichun. So when he has a client who has some kind of missing part of the soul, one of the things that he can use as a tool to doctor that person is to give some of his Sichun power to his patient. It's a fountain. It's a reservoir. It's a reservoir of healing energy, and the Sichun can be given to the patient. It's a power. It's a power that flows from the source, from the spirit, to the shaman. It's held as a reservoir in his medicine bundle, in his Washichun, and when he needs to use it, when he needs to call on it for the benefit of his patient, he gives it. It flows to the patient. The Frank Fulsgrove talks about this in terms of how the shaman has no personal power of his own. He has no healing abilities of his own. It is all the spirit power working through him as a vessel. So at any time, if the shaman begins to think that it is him in his own power, that's going to his head, that's his ego, and he's very likely to lose whatever power that spirit has decided to give him, to use him as a vessel. So humility is of paramount importance to the Lakota shaman, according to Frank Fulsgrove, and who I believe was a Lakota shaman, and the premier Lakota shaman, as a matter of fact. He had 405 spirit helpers. 405. Another meaning of the word Washichun actually is spirit helper. So he had 405 of those in his Wasichun. 405 Sichuns. And he could call on them. in order to continue to, if he uses some of his Sichun power to heal a patient, his reservoir goes down, and he needs to build that back up again. So in order to build it back up, you would go back to do a Hamblecia, or you could ask, in prayer, go into the sweat lodge, the Inipi, and in prayer say, I feel depleted. Can I have some more? And what happens is it will flow through you again. And what Foolscrow recommends is purifying yourself. Keep yourself clean and pure. And he does that with the sweat lodge ceremony, doing that regularly, ideally every day. I do it once a month, sometimes twice a month. I'm lucky if I do it every week. I would love to do it every day. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of places where you can do that every day. You can at the Sundance. At the Sundance, actually, you do it twice a day. Once in the morning when you get up, and once when you go to bed, before you go to bed. So you're constantly purifying yourself at the Sundance. And the idea is you're making yourself a clean, hollow bone, is what Foolscrow calls it, for the spirit to flow through you, through your hollow bone. And it goes into your reservoir, and then you can use it on your patient or store it in your Wasichu. So that's sort of the idea, that the shaman is going to have to do a soul retrieval to find some missing part of the soul, or he can directly replace missing power in that patient by giving them some of his own power from his Sichun reservoir. That's my in brief explanation about what Lakota shamanistic or shamanic healing is about, at least in my understanding, at this point in my own personal development. And I can say that, I'm just a child in these ways, and I've been doing it almost 30 years. I've got a ways to go. Humility is paramount. So we've talked a little bit about the 4 parts of the soul. I also wanted to move on from that to the 4 winds. We talked about the 4 winds. Tate is the wind. He's in the second group of 4 Wakantankas. He has 4 sons called the Tatu Tob Tob, or the Tatu Tob, the 4 winds, and the 4 winds are associated with one of the 4 directions. How did that come about? There's an old Lakota myth about this, and there was before the people were on the world, they were somewhere else. We'll talk about that, but there wasn't anybody in the world really. Only a few scattered spirits, benevolent spirits, and the not so benevolent spirits. One of them is called Wazi. Wazi is the White Ice King. He was a wizard. In the Lakota ways, the wizards are not good guys. The wizards are bad guys. Wizard is the same as a sorcerer, and that is that they have special abilities to do things, but they don't always do them for good reasons, and not for good outcomes. So that's what a wizard is. A wizard is not a shaman. He's not a holy man. He's not a Wachashawakan. There's another word for him, for the sorcerer. And I'll tell you what that is tomorrow. So stay tuned. The Wazi, the wizard from the white wizard, he was tasked by Wakantanka to evaluate the character of Tate's sons. So he tests the character of them. The firstborn is usually, in the old Lakota way, entitled to inherit everything. And in this case, the firstborn was a very arrogant, entitled guy. And Wazia didn't find that very attractive. He didn't find that very admirable. The second son was called Ea, and he was a more compassionate, caring, loving person. He truly tried to help others, his other brothers. And Wazi found that admirable. The third son was sort of indolent and lazy, and the fourth son was adventurous and constructive. So there are these four character types that are tested by Wazi, and he decides that the kind and compassionate and loving one is the one that needs to be exalted instead of the firstborn. And the firstborn was really mad when he found this out. And so he's angry at his brother, the second brother, who was exalted, and when he was exalted, he was told to take the place in the west, to build his teepee there and live there. So ever since then, the west direction is exalted. That's where the pipes are loaded facing the west. The sweat lodge doors face the west. The ceremony begins in the west. Prayers begin in the west. The calling spirit song begins in the west. The west is exalted in Lakota ways, and this is why. The firstborn was given the north direction. The kind of lazy one got the east, and the remaining adventurous one, he was given the south. So that's how the directions were assigned. That's how the west became exalted. The grandfather in the west, the Tankashala in the west, is named Wio Payata. The one in the north is called Waziata. Interesting that Wazi, the Ice King, also lives in the north, and he lives with the north wind. He's not the same as the north wind, but we call grandfather north Waziata. The grandfather in the east is called Wioheinpeata, and the one in the south is called Itogagata. Interestingly enough, there are another two directions. There's the direction of up and the direction of down. So it takes 6 directions to make 3 dimensions, right? If you had only 4 directions, there'd only be 2 dimensions. But since we have three-dimensional reality, we have to have 6 directions. So the direction of up is is for Wakantanka, the sky. Taku Shkanshkan, the sky. It's called Grandfather Sky, so it's more appropriately Taku Shkanshkan. And the downward direction we call Unchimaka, which is Grandmother Earth. And so those are the 4 directions that are called to when doing ceremony in the Lakota way. And I'll do a chapter just on that, on calling spirits. And let's see, that's what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about the 4 parts of the soul and the 4 spirits of the 4 directions. And I guess we've done that. So, shall we, we'll call this the 2nd day of the secret lore of the Lakota Shamans, Chapter 2. Stay tuned for Chapter 3.